Hey, this is Edwin Dearborn, another edition of Growth Driven, where we bring to you experts about business and branding. And today I have Robert Nahas, and he's going to talk to you about how you can become an author. That's right, you become an author. Hey, Robert, thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so Robert, you are an expert in helping entrepreneurs become an author. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I do. I am passionate about books and helping others to help others has sort of become a slogan of mine. And the purpose behind books really gets me excited. And so, it can be people who just are homekeepers, or they're doctors, could be entrepreneurs or anything. But yeah, that's what I love to do. Yeah.
That's great. So how'd you get started in helping other individuals become authors?
That's a good question, because it is very purpose driven. Um, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, though I like to believe I am.
Mentally and spiritually, you are.
That's right. So, I started out as an entrepreneur in retail for 18 years, and I was in manufacturing. So I've always been an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
but I found myself well into my life realizing that I wasn't really doing anything purpose driven. Yeah, I could find purpose, and kind of squeeze it out, but it was a stretch of the imagination, and that kind of set me on a path without really realizing it. But I was really predetermining that I was going to get out of what I was doing, which was the retail. I had a fishing tackle store for 18 years.
Wow.
And it was very successful and so forth. But, if you don't have that meaningful thing that you're doing, it kind of loses its luster after a while. So, and then it was shortly after that, which was kind of interesting. That's what I'm talking about. It's sort of like you make decisions and all of a sudden the world starts falling into place for you based on those decisions. And Walmart started coming in, and other that was the main thing. And it just really was a tough thing for the mom and pops.
Mm-hmm.
And so we couldn't find ourselves making profit anymore. So it was sort of like, okay, well, this is great. This incredibly sucks because I'm losing everything. But in the same sense, it's forcing me to take a new path. So long story short, there were some rough days there where I was literally chasing a tow truck that had just repossessed our car, and and we were getting kicked out of our place of residence, and I had a 2-year-old son at the time, so it was rough times for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But we ended up moving to Florida from Connecticut, and I was going to plug in my fishing lure manufacturing company down here. Just all made sense business-wise and so on, the cost of labor and whatnot, plus the weather and everything,
Right.
And so I was kind of at a point where we weren't really anywhere yet. I closed the store. I didn't try to sell it. I could have gotten a lot of money for it because of its name and so on, but I just didn't feel good about it because I felt that one wouldn't be able to make a profit. I mean, we were doing custom fishing rods and everything, and even doing those things that your competition didn't do, it still wasn't enough to make a living. So coming down to Florida, starting from square zero, I had always been a good writer, and I loved writing, and I thought, man, this would be really something meaningful if I could write books, maybe help others write books so they could communicate to the world their technologies or their life lessons or their inspiration, motivation from the lives that they've, maybe they made it through a near-death experience and what have you, right? So it was kind of interesting, and it is a bit of a lesson in business. I had decided to become a writer, and I announced it in the middle of my house to my son and my wife and my dog. I said, I am a writer, and lo and behold, 5 days later, now we knew no one. We were, newly there in Florida, and had just run into a guy at a coffee shop and traded business cards, and hey, see you around, and didn't know if I'd ever even see the person again. Well, he calls me up 5 days later and says, "Hey, Rob, there's a new. This is back in the .com era. There's a new business coming into shape here, and they're looking for a writer. Do you know any writers?" I said, Dave, I'm a writer, and the rest was history. So I actually got hired 5 days after making that decision, and I learned a lot and so on. So I learned how covers were made and how books were put together and so on. So I learned the technical side of books, as well as the writing I already knew how to do, because I used to write for my businesses and so on. I used to write major articles and so on. So yeah, so then long story short, I was just about to be a millionaire. I had 36,000 stocks that I had earned from this .com company, and 2 weeks before Christmas, everybody got laid off because as you know, the tech stocks bubble had popped.
Yep.
So I kind of said never again would I work for someone, because I had been really an entrepreneur in my life.
Right.
And I started a website, and I said, okay, I'm gonna just start writing books for people. And my first it took a while, a lot of starvation. We were on the starvation diet. Looked great. My wife and I were really thin, and nobody knew it was just because we didn't have enough money to eat. I did little jobs here and there for Fortune 500s as a technical writer, because that's how I entered the field, really.
Okay.
And then I found my first client, who was a doctor who wanted me to write a book for him. And that's what started it all off. And, here I am 20 years later, and having written 60 books myself, and my company has written, just hundreds over the years.
That's great. That's great. So you basically took this moment of change, and from Connecticut to Florida, .com bust, and you just kind of evolved as a writer and finally found your passion, and now have helped a lot of people become authors.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm really happy I did, even though it was really scary. It was sort of like, well, I didn't have a choice. I had to start over. And so I went with what I was passionate about. I went with what I really felt I could make a difference in the world. And that really excited me, because that's what was missing before.
Mm-hmm.
I had success. I was on one of the major shopping networks, buying products for them, being on there, selling products. So I was in power, so to speak, in that field.
Right.
But there was that missing element that really made my life significant, while I'm here. And so having sort of stuck it out and risked it all, as they say, I'm really happy I did, because where I am today, with all the suffering, with all the, with a book, you're employed, and then you're done with the book, and now you're unemployed again. You know how business is, right?
Yep.
And so it was a long road to get to a viable level, but it was all worth it. And I think there's something to be said about following what you believe in, following what you're passionate about. Absolutely.
So when you kind of give me a typical reason or a typical motivation of an entrepreneur or an individual coming to you, and they've got this book in them, like, what is the reasoning that they have to get this book out there?
Oh, awesome question, man. I speak to everyone who comes to us, like whether they fill out a web form or find our number on our website and call us.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not a book mill. Every project has to be meaningful. It has to be important. So we're not doing it for the money, though. The money happens because you're doing it purpose driven, right? It all makes sense. And so I ask this $64,000 question: why do you think this book should be written and published? And it's interesting, the answer, because once or twice, literally probably 3 times in the 20 years, someone said, I want the money, I want to be rich, I want to be famous. Now, people may want all of those things, but not as the number one thing, right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
that's what's the difference. It's like, if you're working for money, it's kind of hard to be happy. But if you're working to help others, or some other commendable thing, then you can be happy every day, because you can just help someone that day and be happy, right? Versus not happy until you make $1 million or $1 billion. But the money happens on its own. So 9.9 out of 10 times, the answer would be based on a commendable goal, which really started to touch me after a while, because I'm like, wow, we hear so much bad news on the news media of how bad the world is, and yet here are all these amazing people, all these amazing individuals who want to help others. So the answer essentially ends up being, I want to help others. So it's really amazing. And so with that answer, we take them on. We'll accept them as a client, because it then becomes alignment of goals and purposes, and we all can be really, really excited about it,
Mhm.
And it's that thing that drives you through the difficult challenges and so on. And a book is not an easy thing to do, even though sometimes marketers will tell you, oh, it's simple and easy, but it's like, not if you want a really good book that can change lives.
Right, right, right.
So yeah, that's the driving force. People who come to us, they want to help people, and it's just so cool.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So now you get these people, they've got this commendable goal, they want to help people. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have commendable goals, want to become an author, but making the two work together is obviously a challenge. I mean, if you've got the goal to be a writer and to help others,
Yeah.
how do you help them overcome the obstacles? And what do you find are the biggest obstacles they come to you with?
Cool. Yeah, because that is a huge challenge. I try to enlighten people on what it takes, because I do find through Hollywood movies and advertisements and so on, we can get this sense of fast and easy overnight success, which doesn't exist.
Right.
And yeah, and so to just have a book and have it published, and to think that it is going to now take off on its own, and you're going to make millions, uh, not likely. It could happen, but I like to go on the path of what's likely. What can you make happen, right? I tend to look at things as the analogy of a rock. If you take a look at a rock, and you really wouldn't expect it to move. It might move from a hurricane or an earthquake, which is very rare. But if you get off your butt and get out there and roll that sucker, it's going to move.
Mhm.
So I let people know quickly through transparency that even before we take them on, really, I talk to them when I have that initial conversation, that this is no quick and easy fix, and that you need to understand that it's going to take your promotional actions. No one else is going to do it for you, and so on. And then I'm even to the really, I just, again, I, I I might even be thought of as sabotaging myself by some business people, but to be transparent, I think, is really important. So I go to the extent of even trying to discourage someone from moving forward, so
Mm.
that I really do know I have someone who I'm willing to take the time to work with, to educate, and to share what I've learned over the years, and that they'll run with it and really be a go-getter. And so that is, the truth is, you have to sell a lot of books to make a lot of money.
Absolutely.
It's like stick of gum. It's, a package of gum. You got to sell a lot of packs of gum before you can even just pay the rent. So I always look at a bigger picture. So when I'm speaking to someone, I think, okay, how could this person really, in a big way, change the world? Do what they want and achieve their purpose and goals. And a lot of times, I'll ask them key questions like, "Hey, are you interested in speaking and to kids or to groups or whatever?" And the answer is usually 9 out of 10 times yes. And so I find out what sort of their lifestyle is like and what would work with them. And then I look at how they could take the information that they offer in their book, because step one is a book that will put you on a platform to tell the world, hey, I'm serious about what I do. I am the person in this field, kind of a thing, right? So the trust factor comes up very quickly in an untrusting world, right? We doubt each other because there are charlatans and so on. We've all been duped. So we tend to not trust someone until they've proven themselves. So to take the time to write a quality book and a person reads it and you change their life with it, now they're on board. Now they're like, okay, I want more of you. And so a person can take the information in a book, which is a lot. It's really crazy to me how much information is given in a book for $20, $40 maybe, if it's hardcover. And it's life-changing information, and yet you can't. The money is priceless. I mean, a person should pay you $200,000 for it, or $20,000 or something. So, but the thing is too, is that it's words on a page. It's life-changing, but you have to then be able to go out and apply that information and make it actually work for you.
Absolutely.
So I work with people on extending that information that they have into information products. So it could be training programs or audios or videos, just all kinds of different documented, whether it's in sound recordings or visual or what have you, information that takes things deeper and adds more and accompanies the book. And with those things, they can make a lot of money with more fairly for what they're sharing,
All right. So really what you're doing is, okay, I'm going to take you through the process of getting a book. Number one, here's the proper estimation of effort to promote the book. You're going to have to go out there, speak, be interviewed, whatever it is, right?
Marketing, yep.
Marketing, promotion, advertising. But also, I'm going to help you repurpose that content into some other format, maybe an online course, series of YouTube videos, whatever it is. So we have ancillary supporting products around it that you can then charge for.
Right. It's exactly right. A website, possibly, maybe, again, depending on their lifestyle. Most of my clients are busy people. Everybody's sort of engrossed in something, right? But it could be, and we look at a way like, okay, what would be the best first step for you? Website, maybe with a blog that offers a membership, and for a low amount, a monthly fee. That's a good entry point. Although I did it the opposite way. People like Frank Kern and Kevin Nations and a lot of these guys I've spoken to in the past, and I was like, man, how'd you do it, guy? Because they all started like $27 product and then $97 and working their way up. I started with a $10,000 product. Before that, it would be a book project, which is enormous, but then coming out with information products in a duplicatable way that can be sold over and over again. I started with a $12,000 program that, and so I don't know, it's just easier to start with 27 in some ways. In other ways, you don't need 1,000 people, you need 12.
Yeah. So it's really depending on your market and what you're doing. So tell me, what are some comments of let's say the book is done, they've gone through the exercise, the months, the years, whatever it takes for them to get that book finally published. what have you found to be the most successful ways to promote the book, at least get exposure, whether that turns into ancillary products or just favorable press?
Mhm.
What have you found to be the best way to promote?
Cool. Well, you made me think of something, and if you don't mind, I want to interject something. What's really, really important is that the initial process of writing a book is done where the right questions are asked to figure out what. See, most people have 20 books in them, not just one.
Mhm.
And so it can very quickly become this blur of information where no point is made. And
Mm.
a person can get the end of it and say, what was this book about? What is my takeaway? And there isn't one. So that's one of the first things that we do is we figure out what the first book should be and why, and then how it should affect the audience, who the audience is, and all those different things. And that really makes the difference between a good book and a great book, right? So then once the book is written and it's laid out, cover design, it's let's say it's on Amazon or it's published with a traditional publisher. You know, Amazon is one of the ways, and there can be category research, keyword research that makes your book more accessible by your audience, more findable to the millions of other competitors on the largest bookstore in the world. Your website, you got to kind of establish yourself. So if somebody looks and says, okay, who is this person? Especially if they want to forward their what they're doing into like an empire where they're training people and stuff. People will look online and see if you show up on Twitter, if you show up on LinkedIn, if you have a website. These are important things. And so there's a way to get established without spending your life there, but it's very, very important. So there's that foundation. And then you can get into online and offline marketing. That changes all the time, but right now, Facebook ads and Google ads and Bing and which is Microsoft now, and then we even use offline now, which is really interesting because almost no one is. There used to be a ton of junk mail in the old days. It doesn't exist anymore. So we do postcards, and it's a brilliant idea. And so that could be a brilliant way to promote your book or your online courses and so on. So as you know, marketing is an ongoing thing. And it's always a series of trials and errors and tweaking things and make them better. And so, it's really just the conventional ways of advertising. And if you're established, you have to have, if somebody finds you, for instance, we're doing this broadcast. If I didn't have a website, then I would have wasted my time, right? Because, I literally do have a past client that I was begging to put a website out there and get some things going. And he was just busy and never did. And he had tweeted something about a year ago that went viral.
Wow.
And he had over 1 million people following the string. And the president of the United States even chimed in.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. But then there was nothing there for him to capitalize on, and so his desire to help others, didn't pan out because he wasn't established. So it's important to do the basics, which is have a nice little website. It doesn't have to be huge, and it can show your book and your information, what you're about, and so on. And then just the conventional means, online and offline.
Yeah, there you go. I would concur. I think you've got to build social presence. So when they Google your name, there you are on the social sites, Twitter, LinkedIn,
Right.
Instagram, whatever is appropriate for your brand and audience.
Yeah.
And to have a place where people can go and find your book independent of Amazon, where you can control the narrative and the design, and as well as retarget them and ask
Right.
them to on your email list.
That's right. Yeah, I was just going to say email is so key. So yeah, there's and that's where seeing what others do can get dangerous, because we'll see someone do something and then copy it, but it's like not really having a plan, and then not having that plan for backing up your purpose. And so you're doing things randomly, and it doesn't really, you don't get the most bang for your time, or your buck, literally. And it's important to do that, to plan.
Absolutely. I'm big on strategy. And you're right. They end up doing things uncoordinated, and
Yeah.
thus don't really get any traction.
Yeah.
Is there any particular audiences or markets that you go after that you would say are more author friendly to, going in that direction?
Mhm. I hope my glasses aren't too shiny
No,
here. Okay, good.
you're totally fine.
Good. So I spaced out there. Could you ask me again?
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any particular markets or niches or industries or types of professions that
Mhm.
you tend to concentrate on because they tend to be more open and
Mhm.
ready to roll when it comes to becoming an author?
Yeah, cool. Not really. Like in some industries, um, you go for like health, right? Health is a big one, right?
Mhm.
Like if someone's in advertising, especially on the internet, they might want to go with health because they can really kick butt with that.
Right.
It's no. I mean, there can be really offbeat things like autism, information on how to. I helped Lori Rakowski, gosh, probably 15 years ago, write her book, Understanding Autism, and
Mm.
she's a mom and her husband of 3 or 4 autistic children, and there were no books out there that gave a perspective of the parents. There were only technical books written by people who didn't have children.
Right.
and
Right.
and you had social workers that came that didn't have children of their own. So they were frustrated because there wasn't that parental perspective, and so she wrote a beautiful book about that, about raising autistic children and understanding them as a parent and so on. So it can be as something like that. It can be. I had a doctor come to me, Dr. Robert Marks, and his first book, I asked him the $64,000 question: why do you want to have this book written and published? And he said, because I want to help people to become more educated, more aware about how they should um, accept prescription medication recommendations from their doctors, and to question and maybe get a second opinion and so forth. He wanted to enlighten them, right? And so his book ended up being written in a fictional sense, and we still fulfilled the purpose
Mm.
by writing it as a fictional book, and then not, having him be shot or something, by big pharma or something, but because he was be going up against a big enemy.
Mhm.
So instead of calling out a couple of companies that were, literally in his life, that he was a forensics medical doctor for the judiciary world, in helping people to have lawsuits and so on. He would have ran into a lot of difficulty that way. So my point is that here's a fictional book that was still communicating the
Sure.
concept and the idea. So I haven't run into anything that was too obscure. If the purpose is there, you can have any kind of genre or niche. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's critical. Great takeaway. If you've got the purpose to share and articulate a story, a message, a mission, a program, a solution to something,
Mhm.
then someone like Robert is the person that you need to reach out to and work with, who can help you navigate all the self-doubts, all the uncertainties, the fears, as well as just how the heck do I get this thing out there into this world and known, having written a couple of books myself, and now I'm, mid my third book. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
My first book was like having a child.
Yeah.
It was like really giving birth to something. And I mean, I'm a male, so I don't know what labor pains is, but watching 4 of my children being born, that was the closest thing I ever came, in my estimation, of having labor pains.
Right.
Because this was my baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know you've probably been down that pathway at least 60 times with other people where they've had their baby. And so someone with your experience, particularly you've helped people, what, with 60 books?
Well, more than that. I personally wrote 60.
So you've personally written 60, help others do unknown amounts of books. So you've obviously got a process in place.
Yes. Yeah, we have other writers and editors and so forth. So we created an all under one roof situation where once someone comes to us and trusts, they find someone they can trust, they then can receive all of the different services for creating their book, as well as marketing, like bestseller campaigns. That's something I didn't mention before, is that you can do a bestseller campaign to get a spike of books.
Mm-hmm.
It's not long-term, obviously, but it will help to put yourself and your book on the map, and to, again, have that trust factor, or the social proof. If it's a bestseller, it must be worth my dime, But as far as the process is concerned, there's absolutely a process, and that's what I'm really, really crazy about, gung-ho about. It's the interview phase, but on steroids. And so, it's really going through a process where you have the author realize their purpose in life. So we step back from the book, and actually it's like, okay, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Where do you want to be in 10, 20, 30 years, depending on your age,
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, cool. So now we know what your purpose is, what your ultimate goal is. So now, how do we support that with a book? And so alignment starts right from day one, working with us. And it's not as simple as, okay, Joe, what do you want in your book? That's sort of an irresponsible question as a writer to ask an author, because the author may not know. They need to be steered and, help them with to fulfill their goals. So we go through this process of purpose, goals, and for the individual, and then we do the same for the book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is the purpose of this book? What should it do for you that will support your lifelong goals and purpose? And then, okay, in order to do that, so it's reverse engineering. In order to do that, what do we need to do? What do we need to say? How do we say it? We want, what do we want readers to do at the end of the book? How do we want them to feel? Okay, good. So this is what we need to do in order to make those things happen, to cause them, right? Causation. So, and then after a somewhat rigorous journey through there, which is a lot of fun and really empowering, people get very excited about that. Then we get into technical things like, okay, what should we have in your book? What should we not have in your book? The topics, and then get into the flow of the information. How should it flow? What is the first thing that the reader should hear? What is the first thing you should say?
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, why? There has to be a reason for it. It can't just be because, that's what I want to say. Well, what effect will that create? So it's always this cause-effect perspective, which is a really brilliant way to approach it, so that the book will become impactful that way, with every page, with every chapter. Yeah.
So I could see that you've got a very specific strategy to capture people's attention, to draw them along with the story. And if that book resonates very strongly and innately a purpose and a vision, it's almost like that intention comes through the words to the reader versus just throwing words on a page and then hoping somehow they make sense of it, which we know that they're not going to do.
Yeah, you got it. You
So
got it.
you get very strategic about it.
Yeah.
So this is awesome and incredible insight, Robert. How
Thank you.
can someone reach you? I've been showing this ticker at the bottom, writerservices.net. I take it that that's a good way to reach you?
Yes. We have a wonderful website, and there are forms there that you can get, download a free ebook on how to protect your material before it's written, and you protect it with the Library of Congress. There's a way to protect it now.
Great.
There's a strategy session form where if you fill it out, one of our author consultants will strategize. It's a free thing to help the person get going in the right direction, whether they work with us or not. It's a really powerful way to go about it. There's a contact page, and we even have our phone number, 800. I think it's an 866 number, but a toll-free number on there.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, you see the website scrolling below. When this uploads to YouTube and we get that all optimized, I'll put the link below where you can reach Robert. Also, I found Robert on LinkedIn. So if you just type in his name into the LinkedIn search bar, you'll be able to find him there. All his contact information, his websites, his social media accounts are all linked there. And you can also look for him within the LinkedIn search bar. Hey, Robert, I want to thank you so much. One last tip or word of wisdom. What would you like to share with that aspiring author that's just full of excitement and vision, but they don't know what to do?
Cool. Thank you for that. You need a book. The book is the door opener. It is where you get instant respect and admiration from people if you do a good job with it. And that alone can be a wonderful point of success for yourself. It's on a lot of bucket lists, right? But it is a door opener. And people who would not give you the time of day before, even if you're in a high level, you'll reach a higher level of respect and admiration where doors will open. So it creates more opportunity for you.
So true.
Yeah.
Robert, great insight. If you are looking to open more doors, network better, reach higher circles of influence, and share that purpose with the world, it's time for you to write that book and reach out to Robert. Robert is an expert in this field. And I know that not only is he an expert in the field, but based on everything that he said, he truly has a passion to help those that have a passion to share their message. So thank you, Robert, for spending time with us here on Growth Driven. This has been another edition of Growth Driven, where we try to bring you the top experts to help you grow your brand, to make that impact in the world. From my own experience, becoming an author has made a huge difference in my life. And I know that individuals like Robert are powerful people for you to connect with, to learn how to navigate all those confusing questions that you have, all those barriers, so that eventually on the other side, you become the author that you've always wanted to become. Again, Robert, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.